Now let's talk about the principles of communication. So aside from defining communication, identifying its elements and describing its nature, it is equally important that you learn the different principles which serves as guide. So the first principle is communication is transactional. So it is a two-way process which involves an exchange. So when a message is sent, you'll be expecting a reply. Alright, so let's give an example. Try to think about a time when you sent a message either via text or email and no one response was made. How did you feel about it? Of course, you will feel hurt because you are expecting a reply from that person. For example, on Messenger, you message your crush and your message was only seen and your crush wasn't able to make a reply. Of course, you will feel bad about it. So conversely, have you at some point ignored a message that was sent to you? Or probably did you reciprocate a genuine greeting or a smile from a classmate? How was that experience? So certainly, it might not have been pleasant because it deviates from the give and take nature of communication. Next, communication is inevitable. So it is impossible not to communicate. So the moment you wake up, you already start communicating by merely thinking of how your day will look like. Another example is when you start eating your breakfast and conversing with your parents or your siblings, you are already taking part in the process of communication. So let's say, for example, in school, you cannot avoid talking with your classmates, right? And more so, your teachers during recitation and consultation. So in other words, communication is an indispensable part of daily life. The third principle is communication is goal-oriented. So when you communicate, you have goals in mind. You do not just say something or write a message on a piece of paper for no reason at all. It is true that you should have goals in mind when you communicate. So it can either be to persuade, to entertain, to inform, or to express one's feelings, ideas, or emotions. It can either be to build and maintain relationship, or to influence others are some parts of purposes of communication. Those are some purposes of communication. Next, communication has various levels. So there are various levels of communication. We have interpersonal, intrapersonal, small group, and public or mass. Let's talk about the intrapersonal level first. So it refers to the communication that occurs when you do self-talk. And the interpersonal level involves two persons who interact with each other, usually based on common communication goals. And for the small group level, it involves 3 to 20 people, while the public level involves more than 20 people in the case of a public official delivering a speech to an audience. So those are the different levels of communication. Next, communication is complex. You may perceive communication as simply sending a text message, talking over the phone, or using hand gestures. However, communication is so complex that it entails a lot of processes. So it can occur simultaneously or successively. Likewise, there are implications and considerations which perceive consciously or unconsciously. In communication, the focus is not just on the message, but also on the kind of relationship the communicators have, including their personal, religious, cultural, educational, and socio-economic backgrounds. So we can say that part of complexity lies in recognition that communication is interactive, context-based, culturally loaded, circular, and irreversible. Next, communication can be learned. Despite of the complexity of communication, it is a skill which can be learned. So the fundamental knowledge in this chapter is your first step to learning and eventually improving your communication skills. You can improve your communication skills gradually. 7. Communication is relational. So in any other communication setting, aside from sharing meaning, the process how meaning is created also echoes two vital aspects of the relationships of the communicators. And the last one is communication is guided by culture. Culture may be defined as a system of knowledge shared by a relatively large group of people. The system includes shared beliefs, values, symbols, and behaviors. So let's say how messages are created and processed in order to foster understanding is greatly influenced by the cultural background of communicators. When one communicates with others whose cultural background is different from his or her own, he or she needs to look at him or herself. So his or her sensitivity must always be given to communication behavior as a way of practicing cultural sensitivity. Regardless of cultural identity and ethnicity, sensitivity must always be given to the sex, age, class, and sexual orientation of the participants in the process of communication. So it is always important for you to understand the cultural identity of who you are communicating with. Now let's proceed to the ethics in communication. So when we say ethics, it deals with one's judgment of rightness or wrongness, appropriateness or inappropriateness of a course of action or decision. So it is a set of moral principles guiding the society to maintain social order. So here are some guidelines for becoming an ethical communicator. First, we have ethical communicators are honest. So in communicating your thoughts, ideas, or feelings, you have to be truthful. Good communicators never lie and deceive other people. So to fully realize the end purpose of communication, thoughts, ideas, and feelings should be expressed with best intention. Second, ethical communicators are well aware of the consequences of their thoughts and actions. So it is important that you need to think before you communicate, whether it is in spoken or written form. So the way you communicate can build or ruin your reputation. Thus, you need to take accountability for what you are doing and what you are saying. As previously mentioned, communication is irreversible. This only means that once you have uttered or written something, you cannot take it back. Therefore, you need to be very cautious with your choice of words and be responsible for your thoughts and actions. Let's go to the third one. Ethical communicators value diversity and respect others' opinion. When we say respect, it means showing regard or consideration for others and their ideas, even if you do not agree with them. People differ, let's say, in terms of backgrounds, interests, beliefs, and value system. They formulate different opinions and insights about the topics and issues. So their ideas may be similar or different from yours. So whatever the case, you have to respect others by listening their points of view and genuinely trying to understand them. You may still disagree with other people without sounding rude or offensive. So this is an indication that you demonstrate respect amidst differences. And lastly, ethical communicators are just and fair. So to be just and fair is to be impartial and objective. So you do not hastily make decisions or judgments based on hearsays, gossips, and personal biases. So an ethical communicator exerts every effort to gather relevant facts or pertinent information related to a situation before making a decision. So it is important that if you hear something, make sure to conduct more research about it in order for you to get a credible information. And also, as a communicator, it is important to validate first the information that you are getting or you are saying. Make sure that everything is credible and reliable to provide a reliable information.